Hi everyone, welcome to the Mental Health Warriors, the MH Warrior TB. I'm your host for this evening, Caroline Murphy-Bennis, the Rainbow Warrior. And tonight we have a fabulous guest called Tessa, who is our resilient warrior. And she's here to talk about the theme of this show, which is about conscious communication and words as medicine and the power of words and how words can help us with our mental health and for a happier, more content life. So you'll see us back here in a few minutes after our video. Bye. Welcome back, everyone, and wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. And Tessa, I'm delighted you got here because it was really close call there, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. How are you?
Great.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. If everybody, for the viewers, everyone's listening, Tessa just got on. I just thought about the skin of your teeth. It was just like, I'd say about 5 seconds before we were supposed to go live.
I know. I was like ready early, and then my internet starts playing up. I'm like, what the heck?
It always happens though, doesn't it? It's kind of controlled as you try to be, but life just has its own agenda, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to be so flexible and really just go with the flow. Otherwise, you cause yourself such, heartache. Some people take it so seriously. And maybe that's a good intro for us, I guess, terms of.
Because you know what I wanted to talk to you about, actually, once we get into it. So I want to hear about your own story a little bit, but I was thinking if we can go into the word resilience. And actually, it's funny because that's a great example there of how you deal with life and have that kind of innate resilience, being a resilient warrior.
Yeah, it's something that you have to learn, I think, through your life. I don't think we all I think the resilience is there, right, for everyone. But we might have not tapped into it enough or had opportunities where it really comes to the fore. Or maybe we unlearned it in some way, shape, or form. And so I believe, because exactly what you said earlier, we can't control most things in life. There's that saying that said the only certainty in life is death, taxes, and I don't know what.
Birth, death, and taxes, I think.
Exactly. So we really can't control anything, and it's how you adapt to the situation. So that you have that good experience. I mean, yesterday, what happened to my hubby and I, working nicely from home, and at 10 a.m., the internet just goes off. And we're like, sometimes, there's outages because they're building quite a bit around us. And then it just comes back on, and this didn't. And my husband had a very important meeting, which he missed because we couldn't get back online.
Oh, wow.
And our internet stayed out until probably 6 p.m. last night. So a very frustrating day for both of us.
So there's 2 days of work that you just couldn't do. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so my attitude was just, well, what can you do? Let the people know that need to know. Do whatever you can from your phone.
Yes.
So find the resources, and that's what I'm all about. I try to find strategies or resources that can help me. Otherwise, we get into such a state, or we get angry or flustered. Because look, these things in the moment we feel are so important to us. Like that was my hubby's reaction initially. It was like, oh my God, I can't miss this meeting. It's a new client and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, it's so typical, right? these things always happen when you
Yeah.
don't want it to happen. And I was just standing back, having a good giggle to myself. Look,
Yeah.
I'd already sent messages to all my colleagues and clients saying, look, this is what's happening. Be prepared. Maybe we just have a phone call, or maybe,
Yeah. Keep
maybe
it
we
simple.
don't, maybe we need to
Yeah.
postpone.
Yeah,
But sometimes
exactly.
when it's happening right then, it's like,
Yeah. But it's
yeah.
funny though, isn't
So,
it? Because it just always does happen. You know the way, like as much as you organize things and you have yourself prepared and whatever, life is always testing you. I always find, the way it's kind of like you have to have that adaptability built in, don't you? Like, kind of adaptability. And I always think during my life like that, I suppose I've had lots of opportunity to build in resilience, that kind of way. And I do think, I was thinking today, about our conversation, I was saying what I describe resilience as a ball, like a bouncing ball, a ball that you bounce and it bounces back up at you. And I think as over life, it's kind of got to the stage where, when I go down, but I come back up quite quickly. Where before, when I was younger and I didn't have that resilience, I'd go down and take me longer to bounce back up, that kind of way. Eventually, I kind of find strategies. But now, like, I still go down, but I find it quicker. It's quicker to come back up. I find that that's with age and maturity, I think, as well. You find that, you find a way. I always think that's one thing I say to myself. So there's always a way. I always say that to the kids. No matter what happens, there is a way. There's a way to solve the problem. We just haven't seen it yet. We haven't found it yet. Yeah, because when you calm down, take a breath, and then you kind of say, okay, think clearly now. What are the strategies now we can put in place? Like you said, can we do it over the phone, or can we?
Yeah.
There's another way of doing it, or postpone it. Yeah.
And just in saying that, look, guys, we're not saying it's easy, because it's really not. When we go down, we go down. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's difficult to manage. But I think what happens, and before I learned to just, like, I call it also, like, I'm in a space where I find I'm surrendering to a lot more. I've really, so that was my word for this year. Learn to surrender, which is the hardest thing I found. Like,
massive.
How do you surrender when you want something massive to happen, when you want to change jobs, change careers? How do you do that? Because let me tell you, I found in my personal experience that life is going to push you to surrender anyway. It's going to show you that test. Or I like to look at it as not a test so much, but as an opportunity for growth.
Absolutely.
Life always shows us where we need to grow.
Absolutely.
And if we resist, it keeps coming back. It'll find different avenues for you to grow through this stage. So the more you knock your head against the wall, the more you are going to come back to that same place and have that same experience. Maybe not exactly the same, but in a different form. Because it wants us to grow. It wants us to accept, let go, surrender.
Learn a lesson. I would say it's trying to teach me a lesson. I'm not getting it. It's like I'm banging my head against the wall, and I can't see it. And it's happened probably 10 times, but I'm not identifying the pattern that I'm working from. Kind of way. I'm working from a pattern that's serving me, and I need to learn. I need to grow, but I'm just not getting it. And then eventually, you just like that. Eventually. So, like I would say, it's like life is like a whisper. Sometimes it starts to whisper, and it's small, and if you don't get it, then it starts to kind of raise its voice, then it starts to shout, and then it starts to scream, and then it's roaring at you. It's like, and then I think so, like I would say, that's why listening is so important. Listening to life before it kind of smacks you in the head. And
I love that. I love that, and I can identify with all those stages. You will listen.
We don't want to listen. We want to hide under the duvet.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, there's fear around, like, some of the lessons that life wants to teach us. There's fear. There's things you may not want to do, or you don't have the courage to step into that space, and so that's why you don't listen. but the whisper will become louder and
Yes.
louder and louder, as you say. It's
Like
so
a
apt. I
microphone
can
then.
tell. Yeah.
It's a loudspeaker, you know.
And also like a mentor and coach of mine, he said something quite similar, and what he said was that when you don't listen, you almost get pushed as well.
That's
That's when that voice is at the loudest. And because this is an experience you need to have for your own growth, and you're not making the steps. We've been talking to you for 5 years, Tessa. Why haven't you listened? Now we are pushing.
Yes, exactly. You get it. Actually, there's a great line. I'm trying to think what it was. Somebody said, like the universe just pushes you until it starts to pull. So I think it kind of gets to a stage where you're being pushed and pushed, and like it's tough. But then eventually, when we get with the program, then it starts to pull you. So you're like kind of being drawn there, and it's easier because you kind of, like you said, it's a surrendering to it, and you start to say, okay, you start to get into the flow of life, and it gets more, and then you kind of feel like I'm not resisting anymore. I'm not getting in my own way, because really we're just getting in our own way, aren't we? We're kind of like, I always say, I kind of try to say to myself, walk in acceptance of life, to walk in acceptance, like every moment, to walk in acceptance, because, if you understand that everything that's coming into your awareness is always for your good, even though you can't recognize that as such. So it's always trying to understand, why is that happening? What am I not seeing? What am I not, understanding? Asking the question and trying to find the right question kind of maybe helps, isn't it? Like, why am I? And then you get little nudges and synchronicities and stuff, that kind of like little breadcrumbs to show you, like, that's the carrot, you either get the carrot or the stick. I prefer the carrot.
Yeah, exactly. The carrot and the stick. So true.
Yeah.
And so the quicker you start listening, and even if there's that fear, the pushing through the fear into the courage, do it, because the harder the whisper becomes, I find the harder the challenges then become. But if you listen at the start, it's a small step, it's not like a cliff that you have to jump over. I heard such a great expression, is like, take the leap, whatever, even if there's fear around it, jump and build your wings on the way down. Because that's what we do, right? We learn, and it may not be that we know everything, but if we're willing to go down the learning and the growth path, you'll build those wings on the way down. But if you don't, the fall is so much harder or more painful, depending on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adam is saying hi. Hello, ladies. It's Adam, and then it says,
Adam.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I suppose that kind of brings in, if you're kind of, instead of sitting back and kind of cruising through life, it's, if you have a purpose, then you're more driven, aren't you? And you're kind of more willing to learn because you're interested in what you're doing, so kind of you're invested in life more so, rather than maybe you're kind of like sitting back and not choosing to kind of grow as such for some reason or whatever, but I suppose like that, some of it is pushed upon us if we're not.
It is, because if I think about the Tony Robbins model, the 6 core needs, or the 6 we call it the 6 core needs. I think he's got another name for it as well. But it's Steve and I did it in one of our podcasts. So you've got the 4 needs of the personality, which is where that certainty and uncertainty comes in, and then significance, love, and connection. Those are the 4. The 4 needs of the personality. But then the last 2 are the spiritual needs, which we all have. We all need this. It's growth and contribution. It's what you said.
Okay.
We have to grow, and all of us, we have to grow. We all have to contribute. It's like nature. If you look out in nature, everything grows, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's summer, winter, autumn, you may not see the growth, and that's what happens to most of us. Maybe you don't see your growth in your career or your business initially, but it's happening under the
Yes.
surface.
Yeah.
As long as you're taking the steps and the action to move forward every single day. It's about that action.
Yes, absolutely. Because one of the principles of life is movement. One of the universal
Yeah.
principles is movement, because life is always moving. It's always flowing. It's in flow.
Yeah.
And it's in
Yeah.
cycles. Like in Celtic spirituality, we always thought about cycles, the cycles of life, cycles of
Yes.
nature, the cycles. But if you're in, like what we kind of have festivals all around the cycles of the sun and the different seasons and stuff. It was
Yes.
always cyclical every 6 weeks. They used to have a different celebration kind of thing, because it was kind of like a different growth season, and then people were
Yeah.
growing with it. So I always feel like
Yeah.
nowadays, because of our modern living, we're
Yeah.
disconnected from our connection with nature, so we don't see life like that. So that's like everything that we're kind of talking about in these interviews. I always find this kind of reconnected into those principles that nature is connected to, innately, but it's just because we have our minds are advanced, but they're nearly disconnected. It's like you haven't come back to yourself, connecting to your body, and then you start to get intuitive hits. And when you're living from insight and intuition, that's you being in flow and being kind of connected to the interconnection of life. So it's
Yeah.
you're working with life. Like you're saying,
Yes.
you're part of the growth of life. So you're kind
Yeah.
of responding to what life is asking you to do, to become. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if we don't work with life, that's when things really fall apart. And it's true what you're saying about the cycles, because even like I've noticed, I mean, for many years, and because I also know about the cycles, I can see when, with everything, like for example, my original background is a marketer. So there's a product life cycle. You'll have your dips and your flows, your ebbs, your peaks and your troughs. And life is like that. So things will be going really well, and then we'll go into a kind of lull. And it's how deep those lulls are. That's what we're talking about. If you haven't listened actively, your lull might be a pretty big one, because you haven't been taking the action or taking that growth. Where I think sometimes if it's not, because sometimes you wonder, why do some people just have this? Well, it looks like from the outset they have a perfect life. They have things just flow for them. Maybe because they're stepping into those challenges. So when
Maybe.
there's
Yes.
an opportunity for growth, they don't resist. They step into it. And so they don't have to learn such big lessons or actually wait, because there isn't such a big growth that they need to do. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
That's
actually,
just what I've been noticing.
yeah, and
And
actually,
when you look at that person, you will see, that person has that energy where they step into things. And this is the coach that I was talking about. He's like that. Like, not to say things haven't happened in his life, but he takes things on head on. So his little, valleys, as we sometimes call them, are not as deep as other people's valleys, because he's continuously growing.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's probably, when you kind of train yourself to, feel the fear and do it anyway nearly. It's kind of like, I feel it's uncomfortable for me. I don't really, this is going out of my comfort zone, but you realize that that's actually, that feeling is the edge. It's like when you're doing yoga or whatever, and you're kind of at the stage and you're kind of shaking. I don't know if you ever do this.
Yeah.
You're like, that's your edge, it's just, that's your growth edge. So when you're kind of shaking and you're like, oh, this is really scary, that means you're at your growth edge. So you need to kind of like, okay, recognize like I'm moving on. I'm going past what I have already. It's a growth period for me. So I need to kind of use my training or my whatever you use, like whether it's mindfulness or whatever techniques, to bring your tools in then to help you. Because I always find things in my life when I've always pushed myself because I've really wanted to do them. Like, the way, like if you really want to do something, you move past the fear, because the want to do them and and the passion to do them is greater than the fear. Like, I think that's a great
Absolutely.
driver, you know. And sometimes it's actually, for me, it's like meaning. If it's actually really meaningful to me and it's really meaningful to the world, then I feel like I have to put myself out of the way and I need to kind of step up and have to find that courage, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and people might have that sense that they have a good purpose or they want to do something, but the fear can be
Yeah.
so paralyzing
Yeah.
and hold them back. So they don't do anything for years and years and years until something pushes
Yeah.
them to say, look, we need you. I think
Yes.
life always says, we not life, but the humans on earth, we need you,
Yes.
even like Adam said once, even if you help one person, you've
Yes.
done a great job.
That's
And
true.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
so push through the fear as much
Yeah.
as you can. I
And
mean, we all know it's not easy.
yeah, exactly. Steve is saying, "Good morning, ladies." And
Hey,
he's
Steve.
hey.
Yeah, the 6 human needs.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
Tessa, I know we came in, we started talking about the whole the fact that it was hard to get on the internet and resilience and all, but I'd just like to say thank you so much for getting up so early to come on. Because you're like 7 a.m., is it there? That's
Oh,
early.
it's not that it's early. It's like Saturdays I try to sleep in a little bit longer
Yeah.
because the week is such a rush. But
Yeah.
actually, I'm doing a grief line shift right after this because
Oh,
I've been
okay.
so busy this morning that I didn't get to do some shifts, and I want to do that. So I was gonna get up early anyway, so
Oh,
all
you're
good.
very
So I just
good.
moved it around a bit.
Oh, I really appreciate it though, Tessa, because it's amazing to get you. And I also wanted to get to know a little bit about your background and stuff, and how did you get involved um in wellness? And I don't know anything about you. I know you from Steve's show,
Yeah.
and the two of you on the show together, but I haven't really heard anything about like your journey or anything like that. I'd love you to maybe share something with us about so people get to know you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll answer Adam's question to me in I guess in the process of this. So I come from a family, it's just my sister and I and my mom and dad. And my mom has a big family, so lots of brothers and sisters. They're about nine children altogether. So it was always great growing up with them. And my family always had an innate, like I always learned this stuff, Caroline, like
Okay.
whether consciously or subconsciously. My uncle, he was always giving me books to read that used to blow my mind, and like I had often no clue what the book was about. It would be like lots of different stuff. I mean, he introduced me to Tony Robbins like years ago, and I used
Wow.
to listen to this guy shouting, like how Tony is, that
Yes.
state,
Yeah.
get into the right state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Years ago, when there were still cassette tapes. I don't know if Adam
Oh,
knows what that is.
I do. I
But
definitely do.
that's how old that was. So they were
Wow.
always in that growth, mental health, spiritual
Okay.
health,
Wow. Yeah.
kind of living those life cycles. And actually it was my uncle also talked to me about the life cycles of life, and sometimes you have a low and all of that. So
Mhm.
that's where I guess I've always been interested in that stuff. I didn't understand it, didn't know how to use it, because my path was kind of in marketing. Like
Okay.
I love brands, but
Well,
I think more the consumer behavior behind the brand. So the
okay.
people,
Yeah.
why people buy, the
Okay.
emotions
Yeah.
attached to it.
Okay.
So
So we're kind of in the same, because I was branding and I used to be working with, well, I still do with marketing people. Yeah. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's funny actually that we're both, because I sometimes think it's funny that I come from branding and I end up kind of interested in wellness and stuff. And right, like, where's that leap come from? But for yourself,
yeah,
it's the same. Yeah, branding.
same.
But
And
psychology, like, because it's psychology in advertising and in marketing and the
absolutely.
mind
I
is,
mean, these,
yeah, it's fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah.
it, it is. And I, like when I reflect now, I probably should have gone into psychology, but I don't. I didn't think that was what I was interested in, and I loved the excitement, I guess, of brands and marketing and marketing, how the spin around marketing in terms of it was so much fun. It was the energy was there. So I was attracted to that really vibrant, like fun and working with brands and but always loved consumer behavior. Like, where people place things on a shelf. That used to fascinate me when I learned it. Like, if you place something at eye level, that's, people are going to buy that more. So the thinking, and I didn't realize at the time what that was, but it was about how we think about life, how we think about things, and how we then behave,
That's really
what our
interesting.
beliefs are.
Because I studied, or I was a lecturer in, I wrote a module for design thinking. So that's funny, like, because I went from like that as well, the branding, but into the thinking side of it. And I kind of did academic stuff for that in third level, and like that. Probably what it was like looking closer at why I was so interested in the branding was more about the thinking, the design thinking side. So like yourself then, like it's kind of like you knew you liked the kind of merchandising side of things and marketing, but it was really the thinking behind it.
Exactly. For me, it is what makes that person want to buy that thing. What is that, the feeling and the emotion that you brought up. So we did quite a lot of car ads because I was in car marketing, a brand manager and marketing manager for a long time. And I was, when we got the ad right, and Peugeot, because I worked for Peugeot Citroën, they did that so well. Their car ads were so connecting to emotion and human spirit. I don't know if you've seen some of even the older, I'm talking about the older ones. Like they really they made you connect to the ad. There was always an emotion. You always felt good, or you felt like excited. There was always emotion to their ads. And so whenever I taught, because I used to work with our dealers as well in the training side of things, is to connect with these simple newspaper ads, try to make it emotional, connect with what do people want. It's not just the features and the benefits. That's, yes, you need that. So I guess that's where the thinking came from. And so for years I was in that, allowed me to travel, but I always felt there was something missing. There was something missing. And it was only when I got to Australia I was introduced to coaching.
And where did you come from? What country were you in before that?
South Africa.
Oh, South Africa. I didn't recognize the accent actually, because I'm usually really good at accents. Maybe it's just it's a bit of Australian with it. I didn't, because I'm usually really good at accents. I didn't get that.
Yeah.
So South Africa. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's when I kind of went into coaching, and it just felt so right. It just felt like, and everything. And that was such a great growth journey, just being introduced to different ways of thinking, and more so into the emotions and how we need to feel our feelings and not suppress them. And I guess lining up, South Africa went through, and I lived through the apartheid stage where your emotions and feelings were suppressed. You had to be quiet, and you couldn't feel that, the government was doing something wrong. You couldn't think like that. You couldn't feel like that. You needed to keep yourself safe. So there's a lot of trauma. There was a lot of trauma. I think people are working through that. But and so all of those experiences have really brought me to where I am now. Like, and my passion is really that you can, no matter where you come from, no matter how low you are, if you can think differently, if you can believe differently, you can do anything, you can go anywhere. When I think about where we came from, like, and how, for long South Africa had sanctions and we couldn't travel to where I'm now living in Australia. It's amazing. So that just shows me that you don't have to be stuck where you are. You don't have to be stuck. People can put rules around you, but your mind is your own. They can't box in what you think about and how you think about things. So that's me. And Adam talks about the first really, really scary, I guess, or opportunity. He said, first opportunity, and what response did you have when you saw the opportunity? My really, really first opportunity, where it was so huge for me, for my family, for everyone, was when countries started opening up, apartheid was abolished, Nelson Mandela was the president, and we could then start traveling and we could do things. And I got the opportunity to au pair in America, and I'd always and this is another thing, I read these books. I don't know if you did as a young girl. I read these books about these beautiful blonde au pairs. They lived with families. Oh my gosh. I was so, I loved those books and the adventures they used to have. And I mean, I must have been so young, Caroline, when I read that.
It was a bit of a dream.
At the age of, but I didn't even know that was maybe a silent manifestation. I don't know, right?
It's like a little whisper,
like a whisper, like you can do that. I was like, who am I? I come from apartheid South Africa. Where am I going?
But it caught your imagination. Yeah, it's like a little seed that stays there with you. You're not really sure.
And that's why I say, don't dismiss anything. If you have a dream, if you have a yearning, just let it be, leave it, say, yes, I'd love to do that, and see what happens. Do not dismiss that. Do not think it can't happen to me, because I didn't. I must have been reading those books and just thinking about, wow, what if I could do that? What if and so at the age of 25, I remember I went to America. I lived in Chicago. With a family, a beautiful family. And even though I was that age, I mean, we hadn't traveled, we were so locked down. In those times, like my dad's very protective. And I was like, I am going. He's like, how can you go? You're leaving your job. And I was like, but when am I ever going to travel? Like he said, you've got to, and this was the thing, right? Look at the thinking. You have a secure job. What happens when you come back? You won't have a job because now you're resigning. I said, Dad, things will happen. Don't worry. I mean, something will happen. My mom is a great, supporter. She helped me fund this trip. It was so amazing. She's old enough. She can do it. She saved up.
Let her go.
Let her. But now, the scary thing is the way we interviewed the family was on the phone, right?
Okay.
So you spoke to people. So you were going into these strangers' houses. Can you imagine?
I know.
It was like the scariest thing. And I was so trusting. I mean, my dad was freaking out. He's like, where are you going? How far are you going? Like, oh my gosh. Like I remember we had to fly to London and then New York. It was like insane,
on your own. You went on your own.
On my own.
Yeah, that's amazing actually, to have that courage. We were talking about courage and moving past your fear and wanting to do something. There you go. It's amazing what you can do when you really want to do something.
And it was really like, I'm not saying the fear wasn't there. I mean, it was like, firstly, I'm going to another continent. I'm going into people's houses that I don't no, because I was living with them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Um,
a
and
culture
so
shock as well, you know?
a culture shock. There was so much trust involved.
Mm.
But I was just like, I was just so excited about it. This was like, must have been my dreams because I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about this at all.
Oh, it's amazing.
And the
That is
first
amazing.
opportunity that came when someone said, "Do you want-" I was like, what's au pairing? Like, what's that?
What is it
And we
anyway?
went to, yeah, and we did it, and I did it. And so that was the really, really first scary, frightening, totally insane, because all my friends were like, are you serious? Wait, what? Where are you going? Like, what? Do you know they have serial killers in America?
Yeah. Oh, when was it was it the 80s or the 90s, early 90s?
No, 96. Yeah.
96, yeah. But in
Yeah.
America was like,
I'm showing my age, guys.
yeah, because when I remember when going to New York as well, like that, traveling around when I was, yeah, it must be the 90s, but and like that, it was a lot different to now, even, so like, there was that, I suppose, fear, but you had that excitement that you wanted to kind of follow it, and especially after being
Absolutely.
repressed down, and like I can really resonate what you were saying about that as well, because Ireland is so much like that too. Like we were very repressed society, and like you're just
Yeah.
like kept down by like the state and by the church and everything like that. And then like I think most that's why just so many people, the Irish people, just travel all over the world, because they're like, you can't wait to kind of just fly,
Yeah.
just open your wings and just some freedom. And it's such a release when you go to different countries, about different societies that were more open and free and accepting as well, not as judgmental of you know difference, you will say. You
Yeah.
could be yourself, whatever that was. We did not that you kind of knew what that was, but you could explore. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
And
had wanderlust as well, like, so I resonate with that completely. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't even know until that moment that I had Wonderland. Because look, I know, like, I guess, well, my mom's baby sister, she traveled, the baby and the older sister, so they traveled. They were able to, before the apartheid lockdown, they were able to get around, travel. So they did most of the countries. Oh, and yeah, in Europe. So she was really, so she was encouraging me. When she heard this, she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing this, go for it. Or she was like, she was like, just be assertive, like with your person, project a certain kind of,
Okay.
I take no nonsense when traveling, so those
Okay.
were her tips for me.
Great. That was really good, actually. Yeah, because when you think about, your body, the way we talk about on these interviews and stuff about your presence, and like what you're
Yeah,
attracting to yourself and not, and
yeah,
if you're coming across like that, that it is a defense safety valve as such, that people are. Yeah,
absolutely,
it was great
absolutely.
advice.
It was great advice. I mean, she had the all those experiences, and so um as crazy as this was, and I take my hats off to my mom, who had not traveled. My mom's a
Mm,
teacher, so that's all she ever did. But she supported me,
mm,
she just trusted. She trusted. My mom's a little, she
mm.
trusted in God. She was like, this
Yeah,
child's gonna be safe. Um, we're sending all the white light, and
yeah.
she's going to be fine. My dad was freaking out, freaking out.
It's like,
Like the day before I was leaving, I remember lying on the bed, and chatting to him and my mom, and he was like, he didn't want to speak to me. He was like, he
really,
didn't want to speak to me.
you didn't know
He said,
what to
Dad,
say to
you're
you.
taking me to the airport tomorrow, right?
He was
Oh,
stunned into silence.
he was stunned, and it was so, anyway, it was so beautiful. He got over it, and I had a wonderful time. I had a
Wow.
wonderful time, and I learned there how to appreciate my family. I
Yeah.
learned what homesickness is. If you've
Yes.
ever had, oh my God, I remember 3 months, because obviously I arrived in summer. It was beautiful. We were doing so much. I just loved it. And that's all I was telling my dad and my mom.
Yeah.
Right? I'm having this good time, and family's wonderful, the kids are wonderful. And then like 3 months later in winter, because Chicago gets
Very
really,
cold.
really cold winters. Really cold winters. And then, obviously, like lots of new experiences, lots of opportunity for growth. And I remember calling home, and it was summer in South Africa. And I was like, I'm missing home. I'm so homesick.
It's so cold here.
My dad was like, yay, she misses us. Oh my gosh, it was so funny. My mom told me after, you made his day. I said, but Mom, I'm sad. I'm homesick. She's like, yeah, he's so happy. Because he thinks you forgot about us. Oh, yeah.
The little girl,
But yeah, so that I guess was my first opportunity where I realized that sometimes you have to just step. I always say, like, calculated risks.
Yeah.
Make sure your ducks are in a row. I'm a planner, so
Okay.
how is this going to turn out or not? And then you go for it. You go for it, and you find the resources and the structures to support that. And I made such beautiful friends from all over the world, and I'm still close to two, three of them. And what happened with my job at Peugeot Citroën, I used to go to Paris for conferences and stuff like that. Yeah, I loved it. And we'd meet up. So I'd set a weekend aside, and we'd say, where are we going? You coming to Paris for the weekend or what?
Wow.
We went to Madrid, we went to Portugal with them. It was such an amazing experience, and we're lifelong friends,
That's
just
amazing.
from that 1 year.
Yeah.
And
But I think you do, like, that is something that happens when you travel, when you're young like that, and you do, because, if you meet people that are doing the same thing or they're meeting at that particular time, you really form a fabulous bond, don't you? That
you
can kind of
do.
travel, because it's kind of a significant time. It's a time for like that growth when you do kind of step out of your comfort zone and do some a challenging experiences like that.
Yeah.
It's really like magic, and it is a magical time, I would think, because there's so many beautiful memories that are created from it, and it's lovely to have that connection with people across your life.
And I guess
as you get older,
so absolutely. And it's so much trust, and because you don't have your family, you don't have your friends. So these people become your family and your friends, and they have your back,
Yeah.
And so you have these amazing, wonderful, scary experiences with them. And throughout, as you say, you are constantly growing and you're trying different things. So, yeah.
And how did you end up in Australia then? We came back, obviously, to South Africa, and then
I came back, and so we lived there for years. And my husband, and this is, this is another thing that I'd always put out there, that I want to live in another country. Australia was never on my map, never. It was just, I love Australia.
Yeah.
But I always used to think about Crocodile Dundee, and those were the images I was getting from Australia, and scary spiders and
that is
crocodiles.
So funny, because I'll tell you why that's funny now, because it's just today I was talking about Australia to Laura, and I was saying it's amazing that you get all these friends in Australia, and she said, "Oh, Mom, Australia! Oh, it's so scary. I could never go there with all the spiders and everything." And I was like, what do you mean? No, crocodiles and everything. Like, it's just and I said, really? I said, it's absolutely beautiful.
And I think, for the longest time, that is how Australia's portrayed or was to the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
Crocodile Dundee. Yeah.
I would have, no, actually, my opinion of that would be like, oh my God, he's so cool. Go out the outback. I'd love to do that because I'm probably just really adventurous. I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to go down traveling around Australia. That's such an amazing guy,
Yeah, so for me, that Australia was never on my map because I guess of that,
yeah. Because of Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile. No, I loved Crocodile Dundee, but all the other scary things, the most poisonous spiders, snakes, blah, 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 blah. It's just like a lot,
Steve says I miss riding my kangaroo to work.
Yes.
And he's like, you got a huge knife as well. Brilliant.
I know. It's amazing the influence of media, right? And
exactly. Often, back to branding. Yeah,
absolutely. Oh my gosh, Steve, I didn't know you had a Peugeot 404. Yeah, I love cars. Oh my gosh, those were amazing. But yeah, Caroline, so it was never really on my map. But the funny thing is, and this is what we talk about media and what's portrayed in the media, because when I was living in America, they used to ask me about the lions running around in the city. I was like, when you get off the plane,
hold on, there's a leprechaun at the door there. Just
exactly. Yeah, and it's fascinating that we think like that, or we have those beliefs about certain things. It was so interesting that I thought people were joking when they were asking me about the lions, and I used to play along and say, yeah, when you get off the plane, there's lions and tigers around the plane, and you have to, and then I realized, oh my gosh, they're serious. I was like, no,
you were playing into it, because people didn't think Ireland. People didn't think when I went to America, they didn't think that we had cars and stuff like that. But they thought that we had we were going around on donkeys or something.
It's so true. We had this conversation, right? Actually, I was talking to, I think it was a Kiwi at the time when I was in America, and we were talking about Microsoft. And we were at her place, and her. We used to call him the host dad. He overheard our conversation, but I think he just heard certain bits of it. Mm-hmm. And I was saying, because we were back then, I was saying, no, we were kind of still working on DOS. Microsoft, Windows hadn't been fully integrated into I don't know what I was saying really, but we were talking about Microsoft and IT stuff, and he thought we didn't have Windows in our houses. It was he came in, he's like, you don't have Windows? So what do you have? We have DOS, and he's like, what? It's just the funniest conversation. But people can just I was like, no, of course our houses have windows. Of course they do, But that is just, misinterpretations and misunderstandings.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very funny. So how did you eventually get to Australia then after you got over there?
Well, so my husband, he got his skills was on the list, and he wanted to travel, and so it was, I guess, Canada and Australia, and then I was not involved in any of that. I was happy because I was, working in marketing. I was working with Persia. I was traveling once a year. So I was like, I don't know what you on about, but okay, you go ahead, you do it. So he did all the paperwork. And then I think something happened with Canada in terms of, I think they closed their numbers for skilled workers. So the lawyer kind of said, maybe let's try Australia. We see how far we go. And he said, okay, yeah, why not? If not, we'll go back to Canada next year. So that was the thinking.
Okay.
Next minute, we got in, and I was like, what? Yeah. But anyway, I loved it. So we had to come in and have a look. So my daughter, well, he flew in because you have to kind of enter.
Okay.
Make a first kind of entry. So my husband came on his own because he kind of knew Australia. He had family here, so it wasn't a big thing for him. And then I brought my, I traveled with my 2-year-old.
Wow.
And I had friends in Sydney, and the moment I guess I stepped in, I loved it.
Really?
Loved it. Loved it. It was a different, Look, all the scary things, I still, I think about it, but I know they far away in the bush, wherever. It's just such a great country. Yeah. So, and then that's how we got here. So based on his skills were needed.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you've done it, you really went like Australia, you made massive jumps. It wasn't just like you went off to America and then like off to Australia, like they're really far apart.
I know, yeah, it's so different. And like the thinking for me was always, and I guess this is what I was saying. My dream was to live in another country, but Australia wasn't on my. So I always thought I would live in Europe, in probably Paris, because I thought I'd move with Peugeot and Citroën.
Okay.
Because there was opportunity to do that within our company, which was an amazing experience. And so quite a few people had that opportunity. And so I that was my thinking, that I want to live in another country, and it's probably going to be somewhere like that.
And again, you're like, we were talking about at the start, we're not in control. Sometimes we don't know like what we think we know what will happen, but actually something out of the blue can happen. And that's why sometimes it's great to think not to worry, because there's always something new, like the spontaneous or the mysterious, that always just kind of can just come along and surprise you, like in a good way, that could be fantastic opportunities that arrive on your doorstep that you don't know are on their way just now to you, that kind of way. Like it's great. And I love to think that way. I love to think of the mysterious, the kind of the unplanned part of life, that you're not in control is a positive thing, because it means that there's spontaneity in life, and there's magic, and there's an exciting part of living. It's not just, because I think if you think life is all about what's in your own head, that can be very limiting, can't it?
Absolutely. And like what I found, and I've been learning this more and more, and the old saying, if one door closes, another one opens. And I would never have found, maybe not never, maybe further down the road, if I had gone to Europe, because I would have been working in the same field that I was always working in. Whereas the opportunity happened in Australia, where it opened me up to meet these amazing, amazing coaches. I mean, having people like Steve in my life is such and all of you is such an amazing experience, because we are so connected, and we're different, but we are so the same, and our experiences are so the same, as we know. So I've really lately taken on the, I don't know if it's the saying, or I believe, maybe it's a belief, that if something is not right for me, it's not going to happen. And I found that when I push against something and it's not right for me, I the path. Like I've had that experience where you've got that inner voice saying, don't go, don't do this, don't take that job. Something doesn't feel right.
It's actually, go ahead.
There's an inner voice that says, this is not the path for you. We will we will show you the right path. And that's what I believe. And no matter what, you'll get to where you need to be, and it will just be in a different way. It's not on your planning or your timing. You can put the actions there. You can you can put the skills behind yourself, and you will find or you will be put there to learn some lessons. And that also I find sometimes happens. Like you'll have
there's an Irish phrase. That's when you're saying that there, it reminded me of kind of like, you know, all these phrases that get passed down in Ireland, you know, from mother to mother all the time. You know, the way like it's not written down, but it's like a wisdom, you know, that comes down, and they say, you know, if it's for you, it won't go by you. You know, that's something that people say, women say, you know, if it's for you, it won't go by you. You know, this kind of thing. It's like, you know, and it's so like there's so much wisdom in all those kind of phrases, because it's like that, you know, if it's for you, it'll happen. If it's not for you, it wasn't to be. You know,
exactly.
Like,
and
it's just what you're saying. If a door doesn't open, something else will turn up. That just wasn't for you. Even though you might have felt you really wanted it, but actually it wasn't right for you.
Exactly. So if one door closes, another one will open, and it will be, it may be better for you, you know, or you'll learn so much more. You'll have different experiences than what you have. And I believe, like, because if you push against something and you say, no, I'm taking that job, even if you, because sometimes it isn't a loud, the voice isn't loud, it's a whisper.
That's it.
You know, there's something missing, there's something wrong. Don't go, don't change jobs yet. This one isn't for you. I'm not saying don't change the job, but this one isn't for you. You know that. And I've had that.
Yeah.
And things just don't work out. I've gone against that voice, and things then, for a while, they may seem to work out. And then that thing that you were sensing, or it actually comes to the fore.
Yeah. And there's a nuance to it, because I'm just thinking of when you're saying that sometimes you can be pushed off that because you're listening to people around you. You know, like you're saying at the very start of your journey, you really wanted to do that. You really had a kind of passion to travel like that, and your dad was putting pressure on, but you kind of stayed with it. And then you know, you had the support of your mum, luckily. But you know, a lot of people aren't as strong. It takes that inner strength to say, no, I have to do this. It's, you know, and to be really kind of courageous and kind of have that inner strength. And that's like building the resilience and inner strength to follow what your heart is telling you to where to go, you know.
Spot on, because I do believe that often we know the right way, and because of, you know, the situation that you're in, and or the desperation of the situation that you're in, you will choose this way. And if you just held on a little bit more, the right thing will come. And I found that many times, if I really just in my heart and really gone with, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, and stuck with it, no matter the challenges. And I had this for the past 2 years where things were thrown at me, and I've just kind of stayed the course and said, it's fine, it's going to work out, it's going to work out, it's going to work out, no matter how hard. And it's been hard. And eventually it works out, or you get to that point, and what you thought it was going to be is maybe not exactly that, but at least you know, okay, so this is not this. I don't specifically like this part in my career, but this one I'm trying. And you can do that, but at least you've had that experience, and you're saying, yeah, okay, great, I've got the learning from that. But it's, you know, and that's how people choose, like within the field of marketing or design, or what is it? Okay, so I'm doing the design now. No, maybe I'm in sales. No, maybe I'm more of a, I want to do product. And that's
finding your niche, kind of, isn't it? Finding that
niche. You're testing. You know, they say don't marry your niche, right? You know, don't marry your niche. You know, suss it out. Is this the right part? And move and keep building the skills and taking the action. And you eventually find your way.
Yeah. And Tessa, do you have like a coaching business that you do full time now?
So My coaching business is still part-time, but I do psychosocial coaching with for a company. So I
Okay.
support people with mental health who are trying to find their way and achieve their goals. So we work on their goals, and we work on, like, sometimes the emotion, with the, depending on the mental health, the emotions are all over the place. So we try and work on that so that we put things in place that they can reach their goals. Simple things like, I want to learn how to drive or get my driver's license. So
Okay.
we work towards those kind of things. Yeah.
And coaching seems, is it a really big industry in Australia, in Sydney? Is that when you arrived into it, or was it growing at that point? Or it seems to be that I find there seems to be a lot of people very comfortable with the coaching. In Ireland, it's not so much. I think it's coming in now, but it
Yeah.
seems to be more established in Australia.
I think maybe we notice it because we're in the industry and that there are
maybe.
quite a lot of coaches. I think, yeah, people still go the traditional way, the therapists, the counselors, and but it is growing. It has grown exponentially, and online courses and things like that's one of the biggest industry growths
Yes.
that they've seen, and coaching is one of them. Yeah,
It's
I think
fabulous,
more,
isn't it, to have the access, I think, to that kind of education online, especially during COVID. I think it's amazing, like, that people can get that kind of, support, I guess, it's more
yeah,
accessible, much more accessible now, isn't it? In all those nuanced areas,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and just the fact that people are open um, to this. Whereas, there's always a trust issue, building rapport, and even like, do I have a problem? It's not that you need to have a problem. Sometimes you want to reach certain goals and you need a different perspective. Often we are too close to whatever it is
Yes,
that
that's
we
it.
want to achieve, and we need another perspective.
Yeah,
So even us coaches, we get coached
yeah,
all the time because sometimes you're just too close to something, and it's good to have someone there to support you and say, what about looking at it this way? Or
yeah,
let's brainstorm a few more ideas.
yeah. Brilliant.
And then it's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And we're actually, you know what, at our hour, just over our hour. So do you want to share your details for your coaching business if anybody wants to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find me on, I guess, on Facebook, Mind Venture, MindVentur, Mind Venture, or my email is tessa@mindventure.com.au. Yeah, maybe I'll put it in the
feed.
feed. Yeah, my
Yeah.
details. Yeah, that would be
Excellent.
great.
Well,
Yeah.
I absolutely enjoyed it so much, Tessa. We could have talked for another
I know we
hour
could have
so
talked for another
easily.
couple of hours. I think we haven't even scratched the surface between you and me.
Definitely not. We'll have to make this as a regular thing, For me, it's great because it's like a Friday night out,
Right, yeah, girls' night.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, a girls' night in. You're having a girls' morning breakfast show, and I'm having a nighttime show.
Yeah, I'm having a breakfast show. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's fantastic, Tessa. Thank you so much, and I'd say thanks so much to everybody for
For jumping
listening.
on.
Yeah, and like there's the next
Yeah,
live
and
ladies, and Adam is here. Just remember, I'm so proud of the growth I have seen in both of you. Oh, thank
sweet, sweet.
you.
Yeah, and Steve and I, we run a live workshop before. We need to do more of those. With being in Melbourne in lockdown, we haven't really been able to. But it's such great opportunities, for people just to come and just understand certain things that, or maybe where their growth areas need to be. We share that with them. Yeah.
It's all about learning about yourself, isn't it? It's about self-awareness, self-knowledge. That's all it is, really. It's kind of and you have more control then when you know where your strengths are and where your not
Yeah.
weaknesses, but where the areas that you can work
Can
on.
grow. Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes, we need someone to show us that, because we're not often thinking that we know there's something missing, but we just don't know what
Yeah,
or
and then
how to
and
find
then
out
you're
what.
too close to your family sometimes, or your friends.
Yeah.
Just will tell you what you want to hear. You need
And
somebody to
that's
do
the
that.
thing. And a
Yeah,
coach
yeah,
is not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to work with you so that you can have the most impact and the change that you want.
yeah. It's amazing, fantastic. And listen, I'll let you off and have the rest of your lovely Saturday. I know you're busy.
Yeah, thank
That was
you. And you
amazing,
have a good
Tessa.
evening.
I loved it, and I'm after learning so much about you. I can't believe that we were in the same industry. I would say, we're in the branding,
Yeah,
marketing world. Yeah, so that's
I
fantastic.
know. Yeah.
Loved it. Oh, thanks so much, Tessa. And we'll say goodbye to everybody. Good night, and
Bye. Thank you,
have a
guys.
wonderful weekend. And I
Thanks, guys.
think,
Thanks, Steve.
yeah, and next week is
Sorry.
our last week of Mental Health Warriors. So I think we're having a few specials. We're going to have warriors jumping on different shows and stuff like that. So the TV guide will be out tomorrow. So check out what's happening on that, and we'll see you all back here on Monday. So there's a coffee morning. I think I'm in the coffee morning with Kerry Burr. So see you back there on Monday. Okay, everyone. Bye. Thanks, Tessa.
Yeah.
Have a lovely weekend.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone.